of GDP. And I'm asking you, how many countries do you know today that have that kind of performance? We have disbursed a third time under our program, but the most important role of our program, and it goes straight into the answer to your question, is that it is a catalyst for financial support for Ukraine. The program mobilizes $122 billion over 4 years, gives predictability to the Ukrainian authorities that funding would be there. And I was very pleased to listen to statements yesterday at the roundtable on Ukraine. The support for Ukraine remains steady. It is firm. You are all aware of the EU 50 billion euros. The US administration is pursuing in Congress support from Ukraine. Many other countries, Japan, Canada, the UK are stepping up. South Korea, the list is long. You also ask, would the needs of Ukraine grow because of the horrific bombing of critical infrastructure? At this point, we assess the needs for this year at 42 billion. We have confidence that these needs would be met. Of course, we will have to continue to carefully monitor conditions in the country. But let me say this, it is the best way to deal with the problem is for the problem, the war, to go away. This war, the war in Gaza, the less of this we have as human race, the better. And looking at the women in the audience, the more women we have in position of authority, the better chance we have for peace.
Let me go to, I'll take the gentleman at the very end of the first row, please.
Thank you. My name is Kabanda Chul from the Zambia Daily Mail. Zambia successfully restructured its debt. So what interventions does the IMF wish to see to enable that the country does not get back into debt distress, bearing in mind the mounting pressures to raise about $1 billion for humanitarian aid on the people which are affected by the drought?
Let me start by congratulating Zambia for successfully completing very complicated negotiations on debt restructuring with both the official and the private sector creditors. Bravo. And very timely, because as you indicated in your question, Zambia is experiencing a very dramatic drought. It is affecting food security. It is affecting electricity production. And we all know how shortages of electricity supply, of energy supply overall, affect the economy. I have had many opportunities to meet with the Minister of Finance, with the President of Zambia. I visited the country. It is a country with enormous potential. It has very fertile soil. It has rich natural resources. It is one of the not many countries in Africa with relatively small populations, 17 million people on a large territory. And it has a determined leadership to pursue reforms. So I am upbeat about Zambia. I think we will see increase in investments. We also will continue to work with Zambia on economic reforms. We have done something very important. We did a governance assessment as a foundation for anti-corruption measures, because one of the, as we all know, one of the problems in resource-rich countries is the cancer of corruption. So removing this cancer is a very important factor to attract financing. And from what we can see, investors are coming to Zambia. Also, the country has taken a very important decision to invest in its people, making education free and accessible. I went to a school, 80 kids in a small room, 4 per desk, 4 per book, textbook, but so eager to learn, so motivated to contribute to their country. And if I ever need a lift of the depressing news you guys deliver, I'm gonna go to Zambia.
Let's go here. Third row, woman in the yellow jacket.
Hello, Ana Rodriguez, Colombian newspaper El Tiempo. Considering the risks of a division of the world in blocks, how will that affect Latin America, and what precaution has the IMF taken? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Let's start with where Latin America is. The region has faced problems in reaching dynamic growth, and in fact, Latin America is growth in Latin America is below the average global growth. Indeed, geoeconomic fragmentation is a negative factor for everybody, including for Latin America, with some caveats. When you look at Latin America, Mexico actually benefits from fragmentation because it has become an entry point into the United States for goods that otherwise might have come from point A to point B without going through Mexico. So there is this element of lengthening supply chains that we are seeing more broadly, and we see some of it in Latin America. So what are the opportunities for Latin America? Well, first, to improve what has not worked so greatly in the past, and it is in the area of macroeconomic policies. In some countries, being too generous, in other countries being too generous in terms of spending, in other countries being too restrictive. So get that fiscal, monetary, financial sector policies in the best possible shape you can. And we see that countries are looking, I mean, look at Argentina, a country that has been for a long time perceived as a lagger from a reform standpoint of view, now is moving very rapidly in tightening the fiscal spending, getting the ability of private investment to find a better return. Inflation in Argentina is going down a little faster than we initially expected. We have, I want to actually sing a praise also to Latin America, and it is in the following. After the global financial crisis, countries have taken to heart getting their monetary policy in order. And many countries in Latin America were faster in tackling inflation than the rest of the world. Now they can start cutting rates. So it's a complex region. There are different stories, but by and large, I think Latin America can go with more effort on the policy front, Latin America can go up and do much better.
Very good. Let's go back to this side of the room. I'll take the woman in the front row in the pink, please.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Mrs. Georgieva, for taking my question. I'm Noura Mashi from Asharq Business with Bloomberg. So in the MENA region, the economic cycle is quite different than it is globally. And with rising inflation, again, it's burdening everyone across the globe, especially with the rise in oil prices and commodity prices. Now, my question is, how can the different countries in our region, both oil and non-oil producing countries, deal with the current contractionary monetary policy, with the current strong dollar that is burdening the highly indebted countries? And how can the IMF support the countries affected by the current Gaza war and the war in South Lebanon as well? Thank you.
Well, thank you for bringing in focus the Middle East. That has indeed been on the receiving end of more turbulence since October. What we recognize is that this impact of the war is indeed affecting the Middle East. We actually, at the time when we have upgraded slightly global projections from 3.1 to 3.2%, we have downgraded our projections for growth in the Middle East by 0.7%. And that is primarily the result of that uncertainty. What we see is the most severe impact is felt where? The epicenter of the war, West Gaza in particular, also West Bank. Gaza's economy is wiped out, more than 80% gone, but also the West Bank is severely impacted. There is some impact on the neighborhood in the following way: most severe on Lebanon, somewhat less on other countries. I would say Jordan has shown remarkable resilience, and so is Egypt. In both cases, in the case of, you ask what the IMF can do, in both cases, in Jordan and in Egypt, we have programs. In Jordan, $1.2 billion program that is anchored in Jordan's own reform plans. It does provide a strong buffer for Jordan, and as a result, the impact of the war is genuinely minimal. In Egypt, we had a program, $3 billion program. We have done something that is rare. We have augmented the program by $5 billion. It is now $8 billion program, primarily because of the severity of the regional shock. When we look beyond those, I just want to bring attention to two countries that should get more attention than they currently do: Sudan and Yemen. Sudan is in the situation is terrible. So is in Yemen. And what I want to stress is that when we have these highly visible wars like the one in Ukraine, like the one in Gaza, Israel-Gaza, they overshadow the pain and suffering that is happening in other places. But I rest assured, for us at the fund, all members are benefiting from our support and our attention, as difficult as conditions may be. And if I can go back to Latin America, I was searching for the growth number for Latin America in my brain. My brain said, ask Julie for the for this little sheet of paper. So in in Latin America, Caribbean, growth last year 2.3%. It slipped to 2%. This year, it is going to improve marginally to 2.5% in 2025. As you can see, way below the global average. So countries are doing okay, but not great.
I'm afraid we have time for just one more question. So I'm going to go back to the center. A woman here in the center in the plaid jacket, kind of right by the camera. And this will be our last question.
Thank you. Thank you for taking my question. Crystal Hoyt, Barbados Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation. You mentioned the need to address the climate crisis. And while the Resilience and Sustainability Trust is a step forward, to qualify for RST financing, eligible countries have to be in a concurrent on-track financing or non-financing IMF-supported program. However, such a requirement restricts members' access to the RST. The majority of the vulnerable, climate-vulnerable countries are not in the IMF program. Is there consideration to either remove that as a requirement, to eliminate it, and why must it be tied to a program? Thank you.
So yes, sorry, let me answer in this way. We are going to review the performance of the RST, and then should there be agreement on adjustments, adjustments will be made. We are not so sure that removing the requirement for a current program at this point would be justified. And let me explain why. Two reasons. One, because for us to help countries integrate climate in their macro policies, it is helpful to have an active and intense engagement on macro policies overall. So when we pluck recommendations on climate policies, be it mitigation or adaptation or transition, we do it in a context of intense engagement with the country, and that makes our job likely to be more impactful. Two, right now, we have many programs, both financing and non-financial programs, and more countries are coming to us. Sometimes they don't need money, but they do want to use the fund as an anchor for their macro policies. Most recently, for example, a country not in Africa, in the Middle East, Iraq, said we would like to have a non-financial arrangement with the fund because we would like to benefit from that anchoring that you offer. We have approved 18 programs so far. We have about 30 countries that have expressed interest. These are countries with financial and non-financial programs. And our ability to respond and our financial capacity is already being stretched. So to help the countries the best, in my heart of heart, I think it is more likely to be effective when we have this more intensive, more tight engagement as we currently have. This being said, as we move forward and we build knowledge and expertise in this area, it might become less important to have that close engagement as one of the prerequisites for successful RST program. And by the way, since you're from Africa, which country? Oh, you're from the Caribbean. Okay, I love the Caribbean. You guys are, you know that the Caribbean holds one of the most successful IMF programs ever? Barbados? Yes, Jamaica. They're both countries that have non-financial arrangements. They both say they're very happy to have these non-financial arrangements because what it does for them gives them more attention from the fund, more access to expertise. So that works. But the short and the long is that we have something that works. We got very quickly to a very strong portfolio of programs. Let's keep it going. And of course, we will revisit, we will assess. And if there is a need for change or conditions for change, I guarantee you a change will be made.
I'm afraid we're going to have to. I'm afraid.
Yeah, let me say Africa. You're asking about Africa. So here is. Well,
No.
people are saying no because it would be
I-
unfair. Sorry.
I think we will need to wrap up now. We will have another opportunity to
Tomorrow. Come tomorrow.
to discuss with the MD. We will have another
tomorrow.
opportunity tomorrow.
Come tomorrow, because then people would says some words about this and about that, and it would not be fair. Come tomorrow. We have another press conference, second bite of the apple. The apple would be right here. Please come.
So with this, I am going to conclude the press briefing. Thank you, Managing Director, for
Thank
joining
you,
us.
everybody.
The transcripts will be available later today on imf.org, and I invite you to join us for the IMFC press conference tomorrow.
Thank you.